Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today we're taking a look at some more expanded content. Expanded in Japan, so the format is a little bit different than internationally, but I don't think we're going to be looking at any Japanese exclusive cards in today's video. I said that last time, and then we saw some like Power Cube or something. I don't know. Japan has a few different cards, but it's pretty similar outside of the one fact that they actually have expanded, which is, different. Things in actually Japan are actually a bit different. Notably, they don't really have Pokemon TCG live, not officially, at least, and so that's different. And outside of that, there are a lot of differences in the way things work, but the formats are pretty much the same. I think some people say that they're like really different. They're not. But outside of that, let's just hop right in because today we're talking about what is arguably the best deck in Expanded. I think I made a video where I said Vileplume, what's this deck? Vileplume Control, Vileplume Bunnelby, Turbo Vileplume, whatever you want to call it. I guess no one calls it Turbo Vileplume, but Vileplume, I said that might be the best deck. It won this tournament. Of course, winning a tournament, though, is not everything because the most played deck in the top 16 was Regidrago VSTAR. Regidrago VSTAR is a really cool deck, really cool in standard, I guess, but it's not so good in standard, right? If you've played it, you know that it's a little hit or miss. But in expanded, it came in 5 of the top 16, so that's really impressive. The most played deck in terms of points, I'll actually take a quick look. Yeah, it did have the most points by a bit of a margin, as it did have the most plays. And of the top 16, there was obviously more. But first, I'm going to open a list. This is going to be, quote, the normal list because so Limitless gives you these like decimal cards. I actually don't even excuse me know if this list has 60 cards. Yeah, I don't know, but it is a list. So starting with Regidrago V-Star itself, I imagine some of you may not know what this card does. It's a V-Star, so it gives up 2 prizes. It is an evolution evolving from a basic Pokemon V. It is Dragon type with no weakness or resistance, as Dragon types are nowadays, and it has 1 attack, but it also has a V-Star power, which we'll talk about first. It's an ability. You can only use 1 V-Star power per game, and this will be the one you are using, as it's fine. Lets you look at the discard the top 7 cards of your deck. You have to discard all those, and then you put any 2 cards from discard pile into your hand. This can be some of the cards that you discarded, but it doesn't have to be. So it is a nice little recovery card because, I mean, you could also view this as just get 2 cards back from your discard, milling 7, but this can be great late game. It can be great early game to help you set up, but it's not insane to help you set up. I mean, there are V-Star powers I'd rather use to set up, but late game, this is pretty insane. The one issue is it can get turned off. We looked at Iron Thorn GX recently, and yeah, that will not be so good for this as it just turns off its ability. But of course, you have the attack as well, which is the main selling point of this card. With Apex Dragon for Grass, Fire, of course, all Dragon Pokemon have, or most Dragon Pokemon have, dual type attacks, and so does Regidrago V-Star. So this just says choose any attack from a Dragon Pokemon in your discard pile, though, and use it as this attack. And it doesn't say this on the card, but you don't need the energy that requirement to use it. Of course, if there's a card, for example, Raging Bolt EX does require that you like discard energy. You need to discard the energy, and that is not something necessarily easy for you to do, so it's not here. Outside of that, yeah, not too much to say. It can copy GX attacks. That is important. Let's take a look at the attackers, though. As I said, this is an average list, literally a list made up of the averages, so we are going to be missing a few attackers here, but we got the main ones that you're going to be I guess I'll tell you how you pay it, though. The main way is double Dragon Energy. We'll get to that in just a moment, though. The first attacker here is Hisuian Goodra V-Star. It does have a V-Star power that can never be used, but it does have an attack that can be used, Rolling Iron here. Again, you can ignore the attack cost completely, because you will be just copying this. It's an evolution, but again, that's better. You can't ever start this, which is good. Dialga GX is one of the attackers you can start it, so we do have Scoop Up Cyclone to get it out of play, but you don't want to start it because then you can't copy it. But we do have Hisuian Goodra V-Star 200, which is solid. There are attacks that do more damage, but this is pretty good. We look at support Pokemon like Dedenne GX, Tapu Lele GX, Crobat V. You could be running Squawkabilly EX. Shaman EX was banned, but for a while that was played. There is Lumineon V or Jirachi EX, which are 2 prizes, and these are all 2 prizes that are one-shottable by Hisuian Goodra VSTAR. And we do run Muscle Band to do 20 more damage, so then you're hitting 220 here. 220 will be enough to knock out Regidrago V or many other basic Pokemon Vs, almost every basic Pokemon V or basic Pokemon EX. And that includes the old capital or the new the capital EXs, the ones that are basics and megas, and then also the new EXs, which are evolutions like stage 1s and stage 2s sometimes. But it will knock out the basics, probably not the stage 1s. But that's 200, pretty good, but that's not why you play it exclusively. You play it because it also gives you it says you take 80 less damage next turn, which is absolutely, well, it's very good, right? Regidrago VSTAR 280 HP, add on essentially an extra 80, you're up to 360, and well, that's pretty good, isn't it, right? 360 is obviously not surviving everything, right? There are attacks that will one-shot you, but they're not that common. In Expanded, if we take a look at the decks, sorry, I was like expecting to see like decks that, okay, like this deck Mew will probably not one-shot you. Yeah, this is hitting like a solid like mid 200s damage output here. That is just never going to one-shot you. It could potentially push up to that 280 mark, but it's not going to be pushing up to that 360 mark. There are certain decks like this that are more common. Regidrago VSTAR itself is not really going to be pushing up to that 360 mark like ever. So this is a really great amount of essentially HP to have. And as I said, we do have Scoop of Cyclone for that healing as well as the ace spec of choice in most of these lists. Yeah, in all of these lists. So that's pretty good. It's a nice, like, solid attack to have, but you, of course, have other attacks. The next one is Dialga GX. Sorry, I closed the screen. There we go. The Dialga GX here, does 3 attacks. It has Overclock, Draw till you have 6, not very good. Shred, 80, but then you hit through effects on your opponent's active. This is okay. There will definitely be times when this is nice. There are some walls. Unfortunately, a big one is Vile. Well, actually, no, this doesn't matter for Vileplume because you're not a basic, but that would stop you from attacking, so that wouldn't hit through it. But if your opponent is running something like, say, Mimikyu, which I don't really know if it's played, but if they are running that, you will stop that. And then next up, you also have the Timeless GX attack here, which is insane. You can use 1 GX attack and 1 V-Star each game, V-Star power, and you get to do 150, which is not a lot. 150 is not one-shotting any of those Pokemon I mentioned earlier. But if you had a Muscle Band to hit 170, then you can go ahead and be one-shotting Dedenne GX, Tapu Lele GX, Lumineon V, Squawkabilly EX, but you're not one-shotting Crobat V. Eldegoss V is one that could be played, probably not, but it could be, and you wouldn't one-shot that with Timeless GX plus Muscle Band. But as I said, you're one-shotting Dedenne and Tapu Lele, or Lumineon. Tapu Lele GX and Lumineon V are essentially the same. And Dedenne GX has played a ton. It's really good. And just one-shotting this, one-shotting that with this, and then taking an extra turn gives you essentially 2 free prizes slash acceleration, or like putting you ahead in tempo as well in terms of setup, because now you've given yourself an extra turn. Although, you do have to sacrifice your GX attack, but it is the main GX attack, and it's really good. Also, if your opponent does have something like Hisuian Goodra VSTAR, an interesting thing, it's during your opponent's next turn. So actually, the first turn, like it'll be an extra turn, so you hit 150 minus damage, but then the turn after that, not minus damage. It's whatever. But yeah, you also do have Noivern GX here, which does have Boom Burst GX. It's a spread GX attack. It's okay, situationally, potentially really good, but pretty niche. But what you want to be using it here for, well, you have 2 attacks: Distort 50 and Item Lock. This is insane because items are really good. The deck that won the tournament was an Item Lock deck in Vileplume, and that was 3 of the decks here, and it did really well. The Mew VMAX deck we looked at runs Seismitoad EX. That's Item Lock. Scouting Fire deck does not run Item Lock. It doesn't look like it, but let's see. I think one of these other decks runs Item Lock. Vikavolt V, yeah, here we go. In this Iron Thorns deck runs Item Lock. Then looking at Lugia V-Star. I mean, this like has to run Item Lock, right? Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I don't actually know what's in here, to be honest. It doesn't. It can run Item Lock, though. I think it's, it will sometimes run Item Lock. It doesn't always, but a lot of them are Vileplume, BV Max, the better decks. the winning decks ran item lock. And this deck runs item lock too because it's annoying. Of course, 50 is not a ton. Again, boosting up to 70 with Muscle Band, it's like okay. But if you're doing this over and over and your opponent isn't doing anything, then you'll just win, right? And then we have Sonic Volume, which is even better. I'd say it does 120, so more damage again. Attack cost completely ignored. Your opponent can't play any special energy cards from their hand during the next turn. This is brutal. Regidrago can this like quote generalist can attack without special energy, but I mean, let's be honest, no, you're not. You need all your energies. So realistically, you're not attacking without special energy. Looking at this deck, it's a bit weird, but it's literally all special energy. You can get them into play, but it's a little different. Vileplume, this deck is mostly special energy. We see some basic energies, but it's mostly special energy. So special energy lock there is pretty good. Lugia, again, this is all special energy, but you do accelerate separately. And then we also see Mew VMAX. Mew VMAX is like a deck that is really difficult, that will really struggle here. They do have Pokemon Ranger, which will cut through the item of special energy locks, but it's not the most consistent card all the time. The big thing here is that they just can't play the double colorless, and then they can't really do too much, can they? So special energy lock, really great. Noivern GX is that versatile piece that a lot of decks will struggle to play around completely, but it's also a bit more of a difficult card to use. Of course, item lock is really great in any scenario, but it might not be your best option. And so you need to consider that with that low damage output. And Sonic Volume's relatively low damage output as well isn't amazing. And then we see Crobat V, Tapu Lele GX, Dedenne GX. Wobbuffet is an ability lock Pokemon. This is kind of good at certain times to like just slow your opponent down, kind of like the item lock, special energy lock stuff, or acquire another set of Pokemon. Then we have Mega Rayquaza EX. This is the dragon one. There's also a colorless one that's obviously not played here. But this does 300 damage for 5 energy, but again, you're copying it. You do Delta Wild, but yeah, you're not using that. You do discard 2 energy attached to this Pokemon, which will be presumably a double dragon. It's not amazing, but it is what it is, right? You can just reattach it. It's whatever. And then you can go ahead and just like do 300 or 320, right? 320 pretty much one-shots everything. It will one-shot all of these Pokemon that we've looked at so far, except for, as I said, that like Regidrago VSTAR copying Issue and Goodra VSTAR, which is very scary. Outside of that, we do have one last card, which is Garbodor. There's actually 2 different Garbodors. There's one from Breakpoint and one from Noble Victory. I don't know. There's a black and white one and an X and Y one. They're essentially the same though. Garbotoxin, if you have a tool attached, you turn off all your all abilities in play except for Garbodors. So, except for Garbodor's Garbotoxin specifically. And so this is really good, right? Ability lock, you have Wobbuffet, you have Garbodor. So you can ability lock your opponent while you are setting up, because the attack, as I said, Grass, Fire, it's 2 attachments. You have Double Dragon. This will pay any 2 energies of a dragon Pokemon, like Regidrago, but then you have the basic energy you need on as well. You do have Raihan to allow you to get another basic energy into play, and you do have other disruption cards. You have Field Blower, Faba, Pokemon Ranger can be used in certain scenarios, and Marnie, Guzma can be disruption. I guess I should mention Mysterious Treasure as well now. This is like a relatively normal expanded deck, but some of you may not know all the cards. Quick Ball, discard a card, search for a basic Pokemon, put it into your hand, and then you can just chuck it down with like Dedenne GX, Tapu Lele GX, Crobat V to draw. Or, of course, your actual Pokemon you need to attack. Mysterious Treasure, discard a card, and then you search for a Psychic or Dragon Pokemon, and that is your Garbodor line, your Regidrago V or V-Star, and any of the attackers you're going to copy, as well as Tapu Lele GX, Wobbuffet, or Oricorio, which is really nice. And then we see 4 Floatstone for the Garbodor. It gives you free retreat and useful in other scenarios. I mentioned Muscle Band a ton, super great in a number of scenarios. Versus Seeker, recover a supporter from your discard pile. This allows you to reuse any of your supporters. We see in terms of supporters, we got ourselves Marnie, Guzma, Faba, which is disruptive, Raihan, Research, Pokemon Ranger, Professor Sycamore, which is the same thing as Professor's Research, Gladion for anti-prizing, Iona, which is then, and Gardenia's Vigor, which is an energy acceleration card, pretty interesting. Yeah. Then we also see Battle Compressor. Lets you search your deck for any 3 cards and then just toss them into the discard. Obviously, it would be better if they were in your hand, but those cards can be recovered with Versus Seeker, or of course, it's not always better to have them in your hand because you need your attackers in the discard for Regidrago. So always just getting your attackers. It's a good card. It's a bit of controversial card to some people think it should be banned. I am not in that group because it's fun and broken. I admit it's broken. We got Issue in Heavy Ball, Chaotic Swell, the stop path to the peak, which is good. And then Rescue Stretcher for Pokemon Recovery. Oh, and Scoop of Cyclone to scoop up a Pokemon and all cards attached. This card's coming back to standard as well. I'm really excited. And can look. That is not standard, is it? We can look at tournament results in standard. Yeah, that these are tournaments in Japanese standard. Yeah, the card's coming back is all I'm saying. So this is looking pretty cool. I'm looking forward to this as well in standard and expand. It's really cool. And also there's a new Dragapult EX, which is a really cool dragon Pokemon you can copy, which is 200 to the active, just like assuming Goodra VSTAR, but instead of the reduced damage, you do 6 damage counters on your opponent's bench in any way you want, which can be really great in a number of scenarios. But overall, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts down below on both this deck and the expanded format, because I think they're really cool. Expanded's a little weird. It's a little toxic. I mean, we were looking at the deck, but it has really powerful walling, an attack that lets you take back-to-back turns, item lock, special energy lock, ability lock, and an attack that does 300 or 320 damage. So yeah, it's kind of good. Oh, there is a Mega Charizard DX. This is kind of the same thing as Mega Rayquaza. You damage or you mill yourself 5. Noivern EX can basic wall and can also do stop special energy or steams being played, and it does more damage than Noivern GX, but it also does not item lock, right? So, and then some people do play single price Regidrago. This Marshadow, a fun little stadium of Ultra Necrozma, does 170 discard an energy from your opponent's active, and Koraidon EX as well does 280 less than 300. Obviously, it does have Retribution Strike, which can do big damage, but more importantly, you don't mill yourself 5 or discard energies, so that could be nice. But anyway, the deck's really cool. I think it's a fun one. I think it's a bit of a weird one. It's it's a toolboxy style deck, but I think it's cool. Toolboxy means that or a toolbox deck is a deck that has a lot of different options for attacking. Generally, is what people mean. But anyways, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you next time. And subscribe.